Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ellie. Today I'm going to be doing my January reading wrap up. I wasn't very organised with doing wrap ups towards the end of 2023, so it's definitely something I want to get back into. I think the last wrap up I posted was around August, so it's been quite a few months. January got off to quite a slow start and I honestly didn't think I was going to read any more than 5 books, but by the end of the month I actually managed to read 12, so I was quite happy with that. I started the month off with a novella, and that was New Year's Day by Monica Murphy, because I just felt that was like a very fitting book to read on New Year's Day. So as this is a novella, it follows the characters of the Lancaster Prep series and it is New Year's Eve, so it's the characters and their children who all sort of range in ages. I think the oldest ones are around 11, they may have been slightly older, so it's quite in the future compared to the actual Lancaster Prep books. But they have this tradition that on New Year's Eve their families come together and host these like lavish New Year's Eve parties, but the children have to stay upstairs and they aren't invited. There is a snowstorm and the party gets cancelled, so the adults invite the children downstairs to just have this cozy family New Year's Eve party. I would say if you haven't read any of the Lancaster Prep books, there's probably no point in reading this one because you wouldn't really know any of the characters, but it is nice to kind of get another glimpse into their lives and what they're doing after their individual books have ended. The second book I read this month was After Darkness Falls by May Sage, and I rated this one 3 out of 5 stars. In this one we follow Chloe. She is a human and she is living in New Orleans. In this world there are supernatural beings and people are aware of them. Her father was a serial killer, so people have always like blamed her and gone after her even though she didn't have anything to do with it. So she moves to New Orleans for a fresh start and she starts working in a bar, and the guy that owns it I believe was a vampire, and a lot of her friends are supernatural beings. And at the start of the book someone launches like another attack on her and it's just like not safe for her to stay where she is. So to keep her safe, the bar owner that she is friends with sponsors her to attend the Institute for Paranormal, even though she is a human. This is a school in the UK, and to attend you have to be sponsored by like a supernatural being that is like high up in the community, like it's an elite place and you can't just get in there. So they get her there because no one should be able to find her there. Once she gets there she meets Levi, who is a vampire, and yeah, secrets are revealed. She might not quite be the person that she thought she was. There are some things that are revealed, and this book got off to like a really good start. I was really hooked at the start of it, but as it went on I just kind of lost a bit of interest, which is why the rating did go down to a 3-star. I liked it, it just didn't grip me. Then I read Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh, and this was one of those books that was really hyped, and I thought I'm just never going to pick it up because it's really thick. There are a few books in the series and they're all really long, and I'd heard that it was like a very emotional book, and I don't tend to read books that are emotional. I kind of read for like escapism, so I want something that's light-hearted. So I honestly didn't think I was ever going to read this, but I kept seeing it in my local Waterstones and I kept seeing people say how great it was, so I caved. I picked it up and I ended up loving this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. In this one we follow Shannon and Johnny. Shannon attends like a local school where she has basically been bullied her whole life, and she gets into Tomham Prep, which is like a private school, and there she meets Johnny, who is the star rugby player. I don't really know like how to describe what happens in this book without giving away spoilers. I will say like it is very emotional, and check the triggers if you are going to pick this one up. But I took my time with reading this because it is a big one and it took me about a week to finish, and I was just like so invested in these characters. I didn't want to put the book down because I just wanted them to have like their happy ending. I wanted things to all be okay, and I was just like completely invested. I'm definitely going to continue with this series. I really want to pick it up soon. Yeah, I don't really know how to like describe it, but if you were like me and you were like intimidated to go into it purely because of the size of it, don't let it put you off. It is a really good book. Then I picked up Scarred by Emily McIntyre. This is book 2 in the Never After series. So I read Hooked back in September I think it was, and I absolutely loved it. Now I did like this I just didn't love it as much as I loved Hooked. This is a forbidden enemies to lovers romance, which is normally like right up my alley, and this is between Sarah, I don't know if it's Sarah or Sarah, and Tristan. So I'm going to say Sarah because to me that's Sarah. So she comes to the kingdom and she is arranged to marry Tristan's brother, but she actually has like an ulterior motive as to why she is going along with this arranged marriage, and there are lots of secrets being kept between the characters. So obviously she is supposed to be marrying Tristan's brother, but she ends up falling for him, and I just felt that the book didn't really pick up until towards the end, and it was quite slow, and I was finding myself a bit bored at times, but like once I got 3/4 of the way through, I was like really invested in what was going on in the characters. There was a bit of everything there, like I say, it was enemies to lovers, there was some spice in it. I just wasn't as gripped with this one. Then I read Locked Up Liars by Elle Thorpe. This is, I believe, on Kindle Unlimited. This is a like reverse harem romance, and I will say it didn't really start in this. I know it's part of a series. I feel this book was very much an introduction to the series and the characters, as that didn't really start in this first book. But we follow May, and at the start she is in a bar with her friends and her sister, and she sees her sister's ex-boyfriend who she had always had a crush on, also in this bar. So her sister leaves as she doesn't want to be seen by him, but May stays, and he notices her and he comes over, and they basically have this conversation where she admits that she had always liked him and he said that he liked her, but nothing had obviously happened because of the sister. They go home together, nothing happens between them because they are feeling this guilt over her sister. They feel that they can't really do anything, and her sister also lives with her, so it was just a bit awkward for anything to happen. The next morning they wake up, and instead of waking up by May, Heath wakes up next to her sister, and he's a bit confused at first because he doesn't remember how he got into her room. And it turns out that he's actually lying next to her sister's body and she has been murdered. So of course, as he was there, all the evidence points towards Heath having been the murderer. May obviously believes this. He was the only one in the house, no one else could have done it, so he is arrested. May then kind of realizes that actually it couldn't have been him, and she wants to prove his innocence, and he doesn't want to see her. She tries to visit the prison and he won't see her, so May gets a job working inside the prison, and she's going to use that as like her way to find out what really happened and to get Heath to speak to her. And some of the prison staff don't really like her at first, but she kind of enlists the help of one of her old school friends who is now a lawyer, and she has a bit of a thing with him at the start of this, and also one of the prison guards, Ro, who is friends with Heath, I believe. So I think they are going to be like the 3 men and the 1 girl that the rest of the series are going to follow. And yeah, it ends like on a very dramatic cliffhanger, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm 100% going to continue with this series. Then I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I have taken the dust jacket off just for displaying it because this is beautiful. I did a reading vlog of reading this book, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. So if you want to hear my thoughts as I was reading, I will leave a link to that reading vlog down below. The next book I read, I apologise if I say the author's name wrong, but that was Spellbound in the Stacks by Kay Iwancio. In this one we follow Faylene. She is a witch, and in this world these witches, if they haven't found their true love by their 30th birthday, they will turn into a cat forever. Faylene is coming up to her 30th. She's kind of gotten used to the idea that she is probably going to have to turn into a cat. She's not yet found her one true love. She owns a bookstore, and there's this customer that keeps coming in, and she really likes him, but she doesn't really know how to initiate conversation because he doesn't speak to her. She doesn't ever really say anything, and then we get some POVs from Aidan, who comes in, and it turns out he goes into her store because he really likes her, and again, he doesn't know how to approach her. So they both like each other, but they don't really act on it at the start, until one day Faylene is in her cat form, and her neighbours call up thinking that she is a cat stuck in a tree. So the fire brigade come out, and Aidan works with the fire department, and he rescues her from this tree and he takes her home, and she is stuck in her cat form. And from this she finds out that actually he does like her. So she comes up with like these schemes to get them to spend time together, and it was sweet. There was some spice in this. It was enjoyable. It was just over 200 pages, so it wasn't too long, and it was good. Then I read A Fate of Wrath and Flame by K.A. Tucker. I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars. So this one, again, I was really gripped at the start. I just kind of lost interest as I went through it. So again, I'm probably going to say the character's name's wrong in this one, but we follow Romeria. So at the start, she is in the human world. She's a human, she's a thief, and I believe it's the mafia that she was working for, so they would like give her things to go out and steal, which she would do and return to them. And she's working at this like party one night to try and find the thing that she needs to steal, where she meets Sophie. And I don't want to like be confusing with talking about this book, but you do meet Sophie and there's her backstory at the very start. So you do find like a little bit out about her before we get into the main story. Some things happen, and basically Romeria, she wakes up and she is now in this fantasy world in the body of another princess with the same name, and everyone believes that she is her, and this princess that she's in the body of has done some bad things, and she's trying to prove her innocence while she's like locked up in this castle, because she didn't do it, but the person whose body she in did do it. And yeah, so she's like living as this doppelganger, and the doppelganger betrayed the king. And I liked the writing. I was just really confused with it. There were like so many different characters kept being introduced, and there were so many like little plots and storylines throughout it that I found it quite hard to keep up with what was going on. It's like I was really hooked at the start, and I thought this is going to be a 5-star. I just was really confused towards the end, and at points I did want to DNF it, but I kept going, and I'm glad I didn't DNF it because I did like it. I was just quite confused. Then I read King of Greed by Anna Huang. This is the 3rd book in the Kings of Sin series. So I loved the Twisted series, and this series I have not loved as much, and this book I was honestly not even going to pick it up because it is a second chance like marriage in trouble, which are tropes that I don't particularly read. I just bought it because I love the author. And I actually ended up giving this 5 out of 5 stars, and I was really surprised with it. It's my favourite in this series so far. So this is the story of Dom and Alessandra. So they have been married for 10 years, and he has this like really successful business. He's thrown himself into it, and because he's been so focused on that, he's kind of like neglected their marriage. And Alessandra's just had enough of him not turning up to things, him missing important dates, and she's like, I love him, but I just can't put myself through this anymore. So she walks away, and when she does that, Dom is kind of left realizing what he's done and what he's let go, and he sets himself the task of getting his wife back. And I just really liked this, and I felt that, and I like that Alessandra really like stuck to herself throughout this. Like she was of course tempted at times to go back to him, but she did kind of still keep her boundaries so that she wasn't rushing back, which I like. I'm just so glad I loved this after the first 2 were like a bit of a miss for me. Then I read Spiced Right by Gigi Templeton. This was an ARC via NetGalley, but I believe this is already out and published. I have all of my notes on my laptop in front of me, so I apologise if I'm staring down whilst I talk about this book, but this is a second chance romance. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So this is the story of Jack and Gillian. They went to college together, but something happened with Jack's family, so he had to leave early and go back to Texas, so they've not really had any contact since then. In the current day, Jack is still living on his family ranch in Texas. He has a successful YouTube channel and he is a champion pitmaster, whilst Gillian is living in Seattle. She has her own business in which she is creating hot sauces, dry rubs. It's like a very foodie themed romance, and she also runs a podcast. So it is suggested that the 2 of them do a one-off episode together as both of their businesses and social medias align. So after not seeing each other for years, they do this one episode and it blows up. It does really well. Everyone like loves their chemistry. So they proposed that they should do 4 in-person shoots together. So Gillian travels from Seattle down to Texas so that they can make this content together, and they are reunited. So there is a sort of underlying storyline with Gillian's past and some things that she went through which was really traumatic to her, that she is still trying to get to grips with and live with, which throughout the book she does slowly open up about this to Jack, and he was like really supportive of her. He's like the perfect gentleman male main character. There was like the right amount of spice sprinkled throughout this as well, and like all of the talk of the food really made me hungry whilst I was reading this book. And they were just like two characters that as I was reading I really felt that they were meant to be together. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Then I read another book on Kindle Unlimited, and that was When Heroes Fall by Gianna Darling. This is the story of Elena and Dante. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. So in this one, Dante is in the mafia. I believe he's like the head, and he was caught doing something and he has been arrested for it. He's going to trial, and Elena is his lawyer. Now, they previously know each other through Elena's sister and one of his friends. So there is a series following them which I haven't yet read, so I think it might have made more sense if I had read that first, but I felt that I wasn't missing out anything by not having read that other book that they were in. I felt like it was okay to just go in with this. So we start off with him in this trial and they get him out like on bail, and Elena is asked to basically babysit him, where she has to move in to his apartment to make sure that he doesn't break any of his conditions. So she really doesn't want this, but she does it because she's really focused on her job. She's worked super hard to be where she is, and she doesn't want to risk anything happening to her job. So he is like immediately attracted to her, but again, she doesn't want to go there. She doesn't want to risk her job. And it's been quite a while since I've read a mafia romance, because I was finding the more I was reading, the more similar they all felt. But I did really like this one. This is part 2 of a duet, and the way this ended, I am really intrigued to see how their story continues together, and I will continue. I've not really read too much by Gianna Darling. I know she's quite a popular author, so I definitely want to explore some more of her books. And the book I ended the month with was I'll Always Be With You by Monica Murphy. So I don't think I've really updated me reading this series because I haven't done a wrap up for so long. So I read A Million Kisses first, I read them out of order and I loved it, gave it 5 stars. So then I decided to go back and read the stories in order. So I read the first book, Things I Wanted to Say But Never Did, and that was Summer and Whit's story, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Didn't really enjoy it too much. Then I picked up, I can't remember the third one, Promises We Meant to Keep, and that was Sylvie and Spencer's story, and I didn't really enjoy that one either, and I was so sad because I loved A Million Kisses so much, and I do have all of the books and I was considering getting rid of them, but I thought no, read them. I was going into this one thinking I'm probably not going to enjoy it, and I did like it. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm glad I found another one in the series that I like. So this is book 4 in the Lancaster Prep series, and we follow Carolina and West. She is a ballet dancer, and at the start of this book they are both in Paris. She is there with her dance company performing, and he is there with his friends, and he knows who she is because of like her family name in the school. This one evening together in Paris, and Carolina's parents find out about this and they drag her back from Paris and tell her she must attend Lancaster Prep for her senior year and she can no longer dance where she is. She is furious about this, and she turns up to the school on her first day, and with her last meeting with West, he told her that he had graduated, so she was not expecting to see him still there. They don't get off to the best start. They are both kind of denying the fact that they ever met each other and knew each other, and they're trying to ignore what happened when they were in Paris. But inevitably, as time goes on, they can't ignore that they are drawn to each other. And yeah, I really liked this. It did take me quite a while to get through again. There was quite a lot of spice in this that I feel wasn't maybe necessarily needed. The book, after, there's 2 parts to this, so you have part of them at Lancaster Prep and then something happens, and then you have them later on when they are adults, and you do see the characters from the other books in this series in this. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. So this series has been 2 I've liked and 2 I've not, so I'm going to continue it and hopefully I'll end up liking more than disliking more. Okay, so they were the 12 books which I read in January. it was a very successful reading month in the end. But if you read any of these, then please let me know what you thought of them, or if you have any recommendations, please let me know. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.